Hey everyone, so I don't know about you, but I have been getting spring fever. It's the beginning of March, and we have had last couple weeks of February, we have days that have gone into the 50s, 60s, almost touched on 70 degrees, but typical New England fashion, when we get temperatures like that, usually a day or two later, we got highs in the 20s, overnight low in the teens, so 2 days ago, it was 65 degrees, beautiful sunny. It stayed in the 50s overnight. Totally gave me spring fever because we had 50s the days before. And then today, yeah. It is snowing, freezing rain, typical mess out there. Matter of fact, it just started snowing again. But what I've been doing is I've been getting my garden ready for the summer. It's the beginning of March, so now is the time you want to start your plants indoors to be able to put them outside for an early season. Now, up here in New England, I will tell you something, don't start your seeds until 6 to 8 weeks before your typical last frost. Some say you can go 12 weeks. So in Northern Rhode Island, we are talking about your last frost generally happens about May 15th to May 31st. Usually the snow stops around May 1st, although I've seen snow as late as May 11th and May 13th. So you may have to cover your plants if you do put them outdoors, but typically you don't want to put them outdoors until May 31st. So let me show you what I've been doing to get started indoors. So this is mostly my winter indoor garden at the moment. You can see I put up a reflector so that it reflects from my grow light onto the reflector. It bounces it back on the plants. Helps keep them a little bit warmer. My average apartment temp is about 60, 65 degrees. I don't know if you can see on that thermometer, but with the grow light and the reflector, I'm running about 70, 75 degrees on this tabletop. So in the back here, we got my sage. The reason why it looks like that is because I just recently harvested it. I'm waiting for it to grow back. Parsley is doing extremely well. My parsley harvested it probably about 5 or 6 times over the winter already. And this harvest right here is actually about a week old. You can see how much it grew back in about a week already. That's one plant that does extremely well in the house. Back here we got the cilantro that's coming up. Tomato and okra I just planted, so still waiting for those to come up. Lavender is very hard. Problem with lavender is you're going to run into the fact that it is very hard to germinate. Takes about a month before the seeds germinate, and they're very delicate. The seeds can go bad very easily in the package and go bad very easily in the soil. So I'm not sure how much longer I'm going to do lavender or if I'm going to do it in the future. I'm just going to have to see what this batch does because this is coming up on the 1 month. If it doesn't start doing anything within like the next few weeks, I may have to dump the batch and either start over or just totally skip the lavender. Back there, that grass looking stuff is actually chives. Chives do very well in the house. I've gotten 3 or 4 harvesters on that real bushy one in the back, and then you can see the other ones are starting to come up. Rosemary is doing well, got a couple harvests out of that. My spearmint plant is actually doing very well. It looks like that right now because I really harvested it back to create more spearmint teas and also to put in my pesto. It's actually starting to outgrow this type of pot, even though it is a deep pot. And that's one of the things with spearmint. Spearmint and peppermint can actually be very invasive and just take over an area. So you might want to grow those in a container, but they're good indoor winter container type plants if you have the right lighting, soil, and watering conditions. So that one's actually getting ready to be transplanted into a 12-inch pot. This is another batch of lavender here, although I've got one sprout that's starting to come up right there, so maybe I'll have some luck with the lavender. That big thing in the back that's ready to go outside, I'm going to put that outside for butterflies. It's actually a what they would call a Pellegrinium, if I can pronounce that correctly. It's a chocolate mint, and also it's a ginger. But what I found is I do not like the taste of it. To me, it does have somewhat of a scent to it, which is what you really like. You can make teas out of it, but personally, it's not one of my favorites. So I'm hoping it does not flower yet, because supposedly these are supposed to flower and attract a lot of butterflies. Got another lavender in the back. The two that are kind of grayish in color, I took from clippings. They seem to be doing okay. And you can see another sprout coming up from the bottom. I got some new rosemary seedlings here. In the back, I've got some oregano. This was hot pepper that's just been planted within the last couple of weeks, so that it hasn't germinated yet. I got another lavender, which is not coming up. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Over here, you can see my basils are really coming up. Got another okra I just planted. My thyme is starting to come up. That rosemary's not doing anything. I think that batch of seeds might be bad. I'm going to give it another week or two. These are spearmint and peppermint. They're just starting to come up. And as you can see, my lemon balm is just starting to come up. Those are the plants I got going right now. This is a sage that is starting to get ready to be able to put in a 12-inch pot, because it's going to grow out of that pot very shortly. And then over here is just my various house plants. I got my aloe. Don't remember exactly what this variegated one is called. My wife had gotten this at a baby shower. It wasn't doing too good, so I took it over, and now it's just like flourishing. In fact, it's starting to grow towards the window a bit, so I got to turn it. This thing is a plant from South India. I am not sure how well it's going to do. It requires high light and about 70-degree temperature, so that's an experiment. And then these here, this is another low light plant. It says, you know, just put it within a foot to 5 feet from the window. That's doing pretty well. This is a clipping off of this one here for the Christmas cactus. This one here, I rooted in water. It's doing well, but it's hit its dormancy. Both of these will go dormant over the winter. And then my Venus flytraps, I don't know. I don't think I'm going to have good luck with those in this environment. The other thing we're going to talk about today is we're going to talk about composting. Why you should compost, and also the materials to compost. So, first of all, why you should compost. You want to make sure that you really have a good batch of soil when you're starting your seedlings. Most of your soil outdoors in your yard is lacking the nutrients for the plants to grow. There are fertilizers you can add to it. There are synthetic fertilizers like Miracle-Gro, although a lot of farmers don't like Miracle-Gro. Although I have seen other people use Miracle-Gro and their plants take off like crazy. To me, composting is a real good way to kind of reduce what goes into the landfills. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what you can compost and why you should compost versus buying a potting mix. So we'll start off with the talking about the potting mixes that I had bought. I'm not going to go over the brands, but pretty much every single one of them, unless you get a real expensive premium mix, have turned out to be the same. So if you look at my lavender pot, one of the things you run into is you've got a lot of these big wood chunks in here. This is what they call homemade or poorly made potting soil, where these chunks have not totally composted and degraded before they bagged it. So what's going to end up happening with that is when your plants germinate, they're going to have a hard time if one of the seeds have gotten underneath one of these wood chunks. They're going to try to grow up around it. It may suppress it from coming up. Not only that, it holds a lot of moisture so that you can have mold issues. And also, if it's down in the soil, you're going to have issues with the roots trying to get around it. Also, some of your potting soil, now I don't have one that's good to show you, but that on top there is actually not mold. That's from me treating it for gnats. Some of your potting soil can have a lot of peat moss. Peat moss can be great for holding in the water. You don't have to water as often. The problem is it remains very saturated and can cause mold issues, especially if you overwater it. So if you do work with peat moss, I suggest getting other materials to mix in with it and fluff it up. One of the things that happened was I had gotten a bad batch of soil that I actually had to get rid of. It introduced those little white flies, also known as fungus gnat. The gnats and the fungus flies actually will lay about 300 eggs in its short lifespan, which produces the larva. And the larva of these things, their job is to eat organic material, which you want the organic material in your soil, but their job is to eat it. Problem is, though, they will also eat the roots of your plants, which will stunt their growth. They also can spread fungus. They also can kill your plants if you don't have a healthy plant, like especially very young seedlings. So you got to really watch your batches, which is why, again, I say you're better off composting your own materials. This way here, you can control what you can get, and you don't end up with big chunks like this. You don't end up with a lot of peat moss that holds too much water. So let me show you my composting. Okay, so for my composting, you can see what I did here was I just took a regular trash can, I set it on top of my recycle bin, and I just put a plastic bag in it. And here goes all my kitchen scraps and also my plant clippings and any of the stems from when I pick the leaves off of my harvest and dry them out as herbs. So what I got going on in here is various kitchen scraps. Mostly you want vegetable scraps. I've got cardboard you can compost in here as long as it's torn up. I've got my coffee grinds, coffee filters, banana peels, eggshells, various vegetables that had been cut up that either we didn't eat or they were the scraps of the vegetables. So to be totally honest with you, with my composting, I do not have a smell coming from that basket. Wait till the plastic bag gets about full, which is usually 3 to 4 days to a week. I haven't had any problems with any fruit flies, especially in the winter time. Haven't had any problems with any odors or anything. And once it gets full, I take it outside. And if you can see it from here, over in that corner where the little black round things are by the garage, those are my compost bins. Now, there are several different ways that you can compost. You can either put it in a pile somewhere in your yard, and then just keep turning it over every few days. The problem with that is, though, you might get some animals in there, but typically you don't if you keep turning it over and the new material is actually in the middle. Plus, the other good thing about putting it on the ground is you will get earthworms and night crawlers that actually start coming up and eating that material and creating worm castings, which is an awesome fertilizer, which we'll get into probably worm composting in a little later of a video. The other thing to do is you can take those circular drums, which I'll take outside and show you exactly how those work. But basically you have two drums. You have one that's you're starting your compost, and you have one that the compost is actually finished. All right, so we're outside and we're taking a look at the compost bins that I use. These are the two turning type that you use to rotate your compost to keep it mixed up. Now, I don't know if the camera's going to pick this up, but one's labeled start and one's labeled finish. What you want to do is you want to switch out these lids once the compost has actually broken down to the black matter. Yes, you're going to fill up your start one first, So I suggest once that one's totally full and you cannot put any more in it, put that one in to finish and let it sit a while, and then start a new one with a start. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, put my compost in the start one. Hopefully the camera is picking this up, but what you can see I got in here is I got leaves, grass, I got all my kitchen scraps and waste that's of the vegetable type. I do not put any meats in here. I'm going to go ahead, empty my bag, and then we're going to give this a little spin. And also your egg cartons that are of the cardboard type are also compostable. So now I'm going to put my start one back on here. And I'm just going to go ahead and give this a little spin to mix it all up. So one of the bad things about these type is you will notice on the ground here, all this black, I'm actually losing some of my compost every time I spin it. Now we're going to move over and I want to show you on the finished one. If it's not frozen shut. Nope. So what you're going to end up with, reach in here, and right now this is actually frozen, so I really can't use it. But this is the black soil that you want to end up with. So technically this is ready to go once it thaws out. Hopefully we'll have some warm weather in the next couple days where I can actually grab this soil. So the other thing I forgot to mention, what you also want to do is you want to take some of your finished soil, and if I can get some out of here, that's not frozen solid. So these all have nice microbes in it that has broken down the other compost. You just want to go ahead and add some to your start bin. This way here it helps all the new compost all break down, because like I said, this is all microbe rich soil.